Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Monday edition of Moohead Radio. I'm your host, a big and furry bovine. Joining me is Matt Ogden from Ohio. He's the only one so far in the panel. How you doing, Matt?
I'm doing good. I guess Steven's freaking out that he can't get in.
Yeah, that wouldn't be new. I get the feeling that Steven drinks a hell of a lot of coffee. I don't know why I get that feeling.
He's energized to talk Cleveland sports.
Yeah, he's motivated, but he's not motivated enough to figure out how to get in the link. I figure maybe he's having trouble getting into the show because he has had that problem before. But there's nothing wrong, as Matt proves that, hey, you can get in. All right.
Yeah, you can get in.
It's not hard. There's no price of admission for this particular program. All right, let's start out because you're with us, Matt. We can start out with Cleveland Indians, your favorite subject. And what would the beginning of baseball season be without Albert Belle grabbing his bat in public? That's right. You remember when he corked his bat?
No, grabbing his bat.
Yeah, well, he grabbed his bat this time, and he got 90 days for it.
Yeah, he just read. Didn't he have like a DUI or something too?
Yeah, this guy, I met back in 2006, Albert Belle was arrested, and there's Steven. Breathe easy, Steven. The show has begun, and you made it.
I made it, Mr. Moohead.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy you did. We're starting out the program discussing Albert Belle, the man who corked his bat so many years ago. And they looked for his bat, and a couple of the Indians had sneaked it out of the dugout. This time, Albert Belle grabbed his bat in Arizona, and he got 90 days for it. If you haven't heard the news.
Was that a corked bat too?
Say what?
Was that a corked bat he used?
Yeah, well, it could have been after he played with it for a while. Here's the deal with Albert. Back in 2006, he was busted for stalking a former girlfriend. I was fortunate enough to have met that girl, and she was a member of the general family who owned the Baltimore Orioles. Now, this was a weird story, and Albert Belle is a freaky guy. He's a scary guy, and he stalked this woman, and he got busted for it in 2006. This is just the latest in a long chapter full of really disgraceful Albert Belle stories. And Matt did properly bring up he was intoxicated while he was exposing himself.
You know why I remember Albert Belle? Because I never forget the title Batgate, where he had his bat confiscated against the White Sox. I think it was like July 8th, 94, July 10th, I think it's July 12th, somewhere around there. So
yeah.
Okay, guys, educate me on this, because I like baseball, but I'm not a fanatic in baseball like I am in basketball and football. So what does that mean when you cork the bat? How does it help your performance versus taking steroids?
All right, think of it this way. Back then, first of all, there weren't steroids. There were greenies, there were amphetamines, and players took amphetamines all the way into the 60s. Back in the 60s, they were taking what they called greenies back then. What they do when they cork a bat is, if you see the average bat, it is hollowed out. The weight of the bat is very crucial to major league hitters, and they're very specific about what bat weights they want. So some hitters found that they got an extra lively spring off of the bat without adding significant weight to the barrel or the head of the bat. So what they would do is, where they would, and it's not unusual, they only show the major league bat from the side when they're swinging. They don't show it top down, so you can see where you can carve out of the top to adjust weights. Well, the suspicion was that Albert Belle was utilizing a corked bat. Well, there was really no suspicion, because when they went to look for the bat, a couple of the Indians crawled through the tunnel with it and got it the hell out of the dugout, so Major League Baseball could never find the bat that was corked. But I think Albert Belle didn't need a corked bat. I just think Albert Belle was such a low-character person that he would try it, just the same way that he would expose himself in public drunkenly or stalk a woman. There are some people who are miscreants, SAT word, and he's one of them.
It's not too bad. I mean, he was batting at what, a 295?
Yeah, great hitter.
Yeah,
People don't remember that about him.
That's not bad, you know.
No, this guy had, and you take into account his early years. So I mean, by the time he became, and the later years where he had hip damage, while he was with the Indians, he was a plus 300 hitter. Think of Michael Brantley's average, but with the power of, my God, of Encarnacion Plus.
Nice.
Packaged with a 312 average.
Yeah, I think he almost had 400 home runs when he retired, like 390 or somewhere around there.
Yeah, he was, I'll tell you, the thing about Albert was that he was obsessive compulsive, and people who knew him, that was his blessing and his curse. First of all, he drank excessively as a young man when he was at LSU, and when he was in the minor leagues, he went by the name of Joey Belle before he changed his name to Albert Belle.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and he was trouble from the get-go, but if you kept him focused in, the only thing he had a problem with is people. He was just not a people person, and he was just mean. He was surly and mean, but his practice habits are what shortened his career. The stretching regimen that Albert Belle used to do, but it was not educated like LeBron James doing yoga. Albert Belle would go through this 2-hour pregame stretch thing, and he wrecked his hip that way because he was a moron. But the thing is he was, I mean, and as a hitter, he would obsessive compulsive study pitchers, and he was a strange case. I'll tell you one thing. I was at the stadium at the Jake, back when it was the Jake, when he hit his 52nd home run. That was his or his 50th, I'm sorry, his 50th home run that year. And I was in the only way you could get tickets were upper deck, and I got them through a record label because I was affiliated with, well, at the time I owned radio stations in Flint, Michigan. So all I had to do was kind of drop down to Toledo over to Cleveland and made it a whole weekend of glorified Northeast Ohio sports. It was a lot of fun. And boy, that place was rocking.
You know, Albert Belle's a very underrated player. I know he only played for Cleveland Indians for about 7 seasons, I think, and then he played for the White Sox and Orioles and retired. But, like, I remember, like, one fascinating stat I remember on ESPN a couple years ago when they talked about this guy is that he was one of only, if I'm correct, it was between 6 and 9, somewhere around in there. I think it was 6 players or 7. He's one of only 7 players in Major League Baseball history to hit 100 RBIs for 9 consecutive years. That's not bad.
Oh, well, yeah. He and the thing is that he was not a huge strikeout guy. The guy hit doubles too. He'd hit 50 doubles and 50 home runs in a season. A guy is the real deal. Matt, are you surprised by the people the Indians sent down and who they have kept to this point?
No, I'm not really surprised, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean,
isn't Brantley going to be on DL to start the season?
The word is that they put him on the DL because they feel that they can control a 7 to 10 day period, that he's only going to be on the DL for about 7 to 10 days. He wasn't quite ready to start the season. So somebody like Rafe Snyder, if he makes the team, or even whoever is battling with him, Geyer, because Geyer has expressed, they say he's healthy, and Geyer says, my wrist still doesn't feel quite right. Even if Rafe Snyder makes the team, he's not going to stay with the team because it's going to be 7 to 10 days. Brantley's going to be up and he's going to be back gone again. So expect to see Brantley 2 weeks into the season. Matt Belisle, to me, I hope that we don't have to see him actually pitch in games. That surprises me a bit. They're thin in their bullpen. They have a couple of good frontline guys, but it really nosedives after that. That's a concern that I have.
I want to ask you guys a question about the Indians related.
Before you do, and Eric Gonzalez, I was surprised made the team. Go ahead.
Well, my question is, it's already pretty much determined that you guys are probably the favorite to win again in the Central.
I believe.
Is there anybody that in the division you think that can contest with you at all? That can keep it within a 5-game lead?
Matt, anybody who can contend with the Indians of the Central?
Maybe I would have to say probably the Twins, maybe.
Yeah, they're reloading. The word is that in Minnesota that they are definitely stocking up.
Near the end of the season, though, I think after that we'll like basically run away with it near the end of the season, like we did.
Yeah, I agree with you. Minnesota looks like if they don't get off to a fast start, they're in deep shit. Okay, I could see Minnesota making 162 games. You got to be really good to play from start to finish. And if you're relying on younger players, or it's going to be a guy like Buxton's hit the 210 that he hit in the first half of the season last year, or the 320 he hit in the second half of the season. These are the things that, the consistency of playing through an entire 162 game schedule. I don't think anybody is going to be able to compete with the Indians over 162 games. Let's put it that way, Stephen. So I don't think the Indians are all that strong, not in the context of what the Yankees have put together and with some of the National League teams. But I do feel that they do have they best get into the playoffs. Let's put it that way. They best. If they don't, there's going to be there'll be cows with guns. And that's an ugly, ugly thought. All right. Here's where the fun starts on the program. Not that it hasn't really started already, but let me do this real quick.
I actually have some breaking moves.
Yeah, Ndonkum Suh to the Los Angeles Rams.
Oh, okay.
1 year, $14 million.
I mean, this guy, Crazy Dog, is like the coolest guy in the world. I look at my cell phone, and he's got the Drew Stanton thing, and, he's busy as hell. He isn't even supposed to be on the show today because, he does his own thing, and this is selfless of you to come in. So when Ndamukong Suh to the Rams, what did they give up?
Oh, it's a 1 year, $14 million deal.
Wow.
Wow.
That's amazing.
That is interesting, and they pulled the offer from Ndamukong Suh. The Jets did, because they said they were going in a different direction, which probably means that they didn't want somebody to cleat the opposition in the face at the end of plays. But Sparky, hey Sparky. Okay. We're getting a lot of background audio. I'm not sure where that's coming from.
It's got to be Crazy Dog.
Yeah, Crazy Dog, do you have audio up? Because we're getting play-by-play. Yeah. We know it.
Here's my TV.
Jim Donovan. Was that Jim Donovan?
No, I'm watching NFL Network.
Oh, all right, cool. Because I was getting like a 75-yard run audio. It was like, I said, wow, did that happen for Cleveland recently? I don't remember that happening for Cleveland recently. 75 yards from the line.
Did you hear about the breaking moves on the Cleveland Browns?
Regarding
Odell Beckham Jr.
Yeah, we'll talk about that too. And I don't want to keep Crazy Dog if he's got to be away. So we're going to go in order here. Crazy Dog, because of your selfless mission to continue informing Moohead Radio listeners of things that are going on in real time. Odell Beckham Jr., yes or no?
That's tough. I would say yes, because he is a dynamic football player, but no, because of his antics.
Okay. Stephen?
Well, according to the trade proposal here, before I answer it, the New York Giants are in talks to send Odell Beckham Jr. to the Browns for wide receiver Corey Coleman, a second-round pick, a third-round pick, and 2 fifth-rounders. So you guys are going to have to give up a lot of picks for this. And your receiver Corey Coleman, in one sense, I kind of like it. To tell you the truth, I don't like it because of his off the field antics. I'd rather keep Corey Coleman and then go with and keep the extra picks and build in the draft.
You have an opinion on this, Matt?
What's the trade?
Just should the Browns get Odell Beckham Jr.? Should they even pursue this?
Corey Coleman, a 5th round, a 3rd round, and a 2nd round, and 2 5th rounds.
I mean, he's a good player and all, but I mean, to give up that much, I mean, and then does he have to work out? Kind of a blow up in his face.
Yeah, there is background audio coming from somewhere. Matt, speak again.
What's that?
Whatever said dynamic backfield, I'm picking up that audio. So I've got the wax out of my ears.
Watching NFL Network.
Oh, okay. Keep watching, Crazy Dog, because you might get something in real time on this Odell Beckham thing. I'm all against this. I'm old enough to remember Andre Rison, guys. And you know something? If Left Eye wasn't burning his freaking house down in Atlanta, that's how it got the name Hotlanta. It was because, fire! It was like Smokey the Bear visits Andre Rison. God, I don't know. Big name guy smoking blunts in public. I mean, to be very honest with you, I looked at Cleveland.com, and this will tell you everything you need to know. The 12 reasons why we should trade for Odell Beckham Jr. One thing, the new Browns receivers coach, his name is Henry, and they were together. He coached him back in New York in 2016 and 2017, but also coached him at LSU. Plus, we have an LSU reunion with Landry, the wide receiver we just picked up from the Dolphins. All right. Those aren't really good reasons for me. The third reason is the Browns are in win now mode. I throw that out the window. The next one is he'd be another great weapon for Tyrod Taylor and the number 1 overall pick. Well, he'd be a potential weapon, but then there's number 5. The Browns have experience with difficult receivers, and none of the experience has been good. I don't get this.
You think the reason why they're getting him, they want him, is because him and Landry used to be roommates or something?
Yeah, well, I mean, I know that Landry's been tweeting, we want him. And, something, look, brother, if you're on the down low, we don't have to hear about it on Twitter. I mean, I'm not, honestly, I don't care. They can go have a drink wherever they want to go have a drink. They don't have to play together. But this experience with difficult receivers thing is really ridiculous. They're going to say that Dorsey drafted Tyreek Hill in Kansas City after the domestic violence allegations. But Todd Haley has experience with all kinds of people who are Albert Bell-like from his days in Pittsburgh. But, the taste that remains in our mouth is Josh Gordon. And Josh Gordon was as talented as a guy as I've seen. But, the number 6 reason is that Josh Gordon is one day at a time. So one of the reasons they say we should trade for Odell Beckham Jr. is because Josh Gordon is going to fall off the wagon. I mean, no.
You got 2 potheads on the same team, and both guys got serious off-the-field issues.
Yeah, I think people are, grabbing their bat like Albert Bell did because, the opportunity of having Gordon and Landry and OBJ on the same team. And then you got Duke Johnson and David Njoku. Oh, my God, we are going to have this incredible downfield passing game. Never mind the fact that we ended up getting a quarterback in Tyrod Taylor who throws short passes. Let's be honest about this. Corey Coleman, I really don't care about Corey Coleman, but I do care about 2nd and 3rd round draft picks because we're lacking. We're not ready for that big move. If we were a year in the future, I think, and if we won 6 or 7 games,
it would be an upgrade.
Then I would say, wow, that could be the thing that takes us to that next step,
And another thing is we got to pay him. Like, how in the heck are we going to pay Landry, Gordon, Beckham, Duke, and all those guys?
Well, the word is Beckham is due to make $8.5 million in 2018, and Landry is making twice that, almost $16 million this year. Gordon's on the books for only $790,000 because of all the suspensions that he's gone through. So this particular threesome wouldn't be nearly as expensive as the one that Donald Trump paid for. Never mind. But the bottom line is this, is that Gordon will go someplace else. Beckham will have this dramatic markup after 2018, and Landry is already being paid multiple years by the Browns. So for 1 year, I can't see getting Odell Beckham Jr. at a discounted $8.5 million rate this season and give up a 2, a 3, and 2 5s and Coleman. That's rent-a-player, folks. You can't do it.
You remember what this reminds me of? This reminds me of two things, and they both were failures. Number one, Cincinnati Bengals, the year that they acquired both Ocho Cinco and T.O., and they thought with this caliber duo as receivers, both of these guys were head cases, sort of similar to if you had a Josh Gordon and Odell. And then number two, with the wheels pedaling so fast, will the train derail? Meaning Cleveland is going all in and trying to win now. If you remember back when the Eagles did the Dream Team, that didn't necessarily work with all these pieces like the Vicks, the Vince Youngs, and having all the players that they had on the field, and it did not work, you know?
Crazy Dog, I mean, it comes down to not just money, but if this guy, I mean, people start out one way, and success kills some people. Some people wind up being great, but they can't maintain their greatness because they can't stand prosperity. Odell Beckham Jr. strikes me as a guy who at 25 years of age has discovered the limelight, and the limelight has dragged him down. You see it any differently than I do?
No, I see it like that. He just hasn't been up to his potential yet.
And the thing is that it's not like he's 100% healthy all the time either. I mean, I just don't like the idea of bringing somebody into the mix who's troubled when we're trying to get out of a troubled situation. The only thing I want to do is to let him go swimming in the lake with Hugh Jackson. If we can let them swim together, I'll be a happy guy, because maybe neither of them will come out of the water. That would be my hope for all that.
If you thought the Super Bowl ad with Eli and Odell was gay, just imagine seeing Hugh Jackson and Odell on the next Super Bowl commercial.
Yeah. And hold on a sec. That's how you shut up dogs while you're muting your microphone. All right. Honestly, I'm not enthused about. I mean, normally we all be thrilled with the prospect of being able to get Odell Beckham, but the Giants have lost patience with him, for God's sakes. Here's what Tony the Calf is saying in the chat room. Give me some more Cheetos. These things are awesome. No, he's saying Twins and Indians and the rest of the teams, of the Central are awful. It's just the Twins and Indians going to be duking it out. Tony says the Twins have pitching depth and offensive depth now. And Tony is reminding me that yesterday was Howard Cosell's 100th birthday. Yeah. So I'll do my little homage now for Howard Cosell. And right there, Stephen Rose from Texas. What a man he is. Look at him. How many cheeseburgers do you think that man can eat? And also Crazy Dog 99. The man's name says it all. He's a lunatic. He's part of the football lunatic fringe. And my silent friend, Matt Ogden. Matt from Ohio, who says very little, but knows more than me and Dandy Don Meredith combined.
The man of few words.
As for O.J. Simpson, put that knife down, O.J. You're going to kill You already did kill someone. Yeah. I mean, can you imagine what it's like now? You know, the Monday Night Football team reassembled, you know, and it's like Dandy Don and Howard or wherever they are, but OJ's still alive. There's no fucking justice in the world. How can OJ Simpson still be alive? All right. So that's that. My homage to Howard Cosell. All right. And Tony is saying, I love this Browns hype. There's not even any talks. This is just a bunch of bullshit being spewed. You buy this? I mean, tell me. First, we'll go to Crazy Dog. Tony is saying that the Odell Beckham thing is all bullshit. You believe it?
Honestly, yeah, because there's no way the Giants are actually going to trade him. We've seen what they look like. They're not going to trade him. I will be shocked beyond belief if they trade Odell Beckham.
Yeah. Yeah, Tony says they aren't giving him up without getting the number 4 in return, and that's never going to happen. But you know something? John Dorsey is great because he's going to keep people guessing as to what the Browns are going to do right up until the minute that they do it. So I like that.
My question is, it's not more so are the Giants dumb enough to do the trade, but are the Cleveland Browns dumb enough to accept the trade?
Yeah, you never know. Ron Shane is saying that Aaron Pryor, former boxer, signed with the New York Jets. No, obviously. You knew all that talk, too. I mean, if you don't want Pryor, you don't want Odell Beckham. You know what I'm saying? If you don't want a problem, you don't want a problem. And to me, Pryor was a guy who we milked one great season out of him, and that was our wide receiver coach who lured him to have a great concentrated season. But man, after that, Pryor's been squat, man. Yeah. And Paul Baker in the chat room is saying, as a person, Beckham is a troubled moron. That would be putting it mildly. Yep.
Yeah.
So, all right. So that's that. So I'm not even going to quote any more reasons why the Browns should trade for him. And Dorsey is also saying, hey, the Jets did call about our number 1, and hey, we're not kidding around. We might trade it. Yeah. Yeah, pull my other leg. It's got bells on it. You know, no.
Hey, Mr. Moohead, are you sold on the Browns drafting Sam Darnold at 1? I mean, I know we keep talking about the draft over and over, but at this point, are you sold on Sam Darnold possibly being the number 1 pick?
I feel better about it because we know that he won't be playing in 2 years. You know, it's going to be 2 years before. I mean, realistically, you've got Tyrod Taylor for a year, and then you've got Drew Stanton if the young man's not ready. And I'm not saying Drew Stanton is the answer to our dreams, but you got to have that veteran guy. I got no problem with having Drew Stanton as the second string quarterback. Darnold, none of these guys are going to be ready to play, especially for this organization. Not right now. So I still don't like Darnold as much as I like Rosen as far as their pocket presence. I know that Rosen is not real quick to react. He's a statue in the pocket, but you can work around that if you have people up front who can block. But I don't know any way that you can absolve somebody of all the turnovers that Darnold had in college and just turn a blind eye to it. I'm still real nervous about that. I don't know. Anybody, have you changed your mind, Crazy Dog, Steve, Matt, about the number 1 pick?
I think Darnold's going to be number 1.
I hate to say it, you guys don't have a number 2 quarterback right now, so it only makes sense to draft whatever you're going to get at 1, whatever it is, and it looks like Darnold's going to be it. I thought Saquon Barkley's the guy, but after you got Carlos Hyde, I'm now starting to think, okay, well, they signed Stanton. Are they really comfortable with him being – because that's like another Josh McGowan to me. So would you really be comfortable with Drew Stanton if possibly Tyrod Taylor doesn't work out? You got another Josh McGowan on your hands, so I would think Sam Darnold would probably be the obvious choice at this point.
Well, it's better than the Nathan Peterman catalog. I mean, I'm sitting here trying to figure out what in the hell Buffalo is, it's like, my God. Well, we can always start Peterman. And it's like, hey, you did one. Yeah, they did once last year, and the ball kept going the other direction. He's the only guy who's the anti-gravity quarterback. He throws it this way, but it ends up going back this way.
He did 5 INTs, if I remember correctly, in his debut against the Chargers.
It was horrible.
Yeah.
Your other instance, Crazy Dog, froze up, I think, in the studio, correct? Yeah, okay. I just want to make sure that I'm seeing this correct. And I think you're having, I think Crazy Dog's having all kinds of internet issues because he's not usually choppy like this. So whatever you've got, Matt, it's spreading.
I think so, yeah. It's spread to Crazy Dog now.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Moohead, it honestly seems like you guys are overachieving. Do you think that sometimes acquiring so many players at once could actually backfire? Do you think that's the case in this case?
In what case specifically? I'm sorry.
Well, if you refer to the Dream Team in 2011, 2012 with the Eagles acquiring all the players they did to try to build like a championship team.
I don't believe in that. I believe that you build a foundation, and from that foundation, probably the best things, and I think Crazy Dog would agree with me, is that it's what I call the pleasant surprises. It's if you look at the history of the success of the Cleveland Browns when they were good, and you looked at like guys like Doug Deacon out of Illinois, guys like that, guys like Bob Golick, okay, who was a Notre Dame guy, but nobody thought that he would have the kind of career that he had with Cleveland. If you look at the Steve Everetts, the guys who, the Mike Babbs out of Texas, the guys who, you know, the interior linemen, the people who were the Michael Dean Perrys who outperformed his morbidly obese brother. Those are the pleasant surprises that you get when you draft second, third, fourth, fifth round people and add that to a solid foundation. It isn't a superstar league like the NBA where you can wait and see if you can lure a LeBron James and that will shift your fortunes. Way different game in the NFL.
Yes. Yes.
So, what I was asking Crazy Dog was whether you've changed your mind about the number 1 pick.
No. I'm still on the Darnold train at number 1.
All right, so you're with Darnold. You don't want Rosen, though. You'd rather have Darnold.
They have Darnold.
You know, it's funny how if you look at all of our videos in the past, even before you guys joined the show, you can see all the previous episodes, and we were all like, "Oh no, Saquon Barkley." And it's funny how now that the draft is coming, how all of our opinions shift. You know, we're like, "Oh, now it goes to quarterback," and it's like so cool that we can have these conversations and stuff. Well, our mind change within a week. You know.
What is it, Matt?
You got the Jets trading up for the 3rd pick.
That's true. I mean, things do change. It's a fluid situation when you're looking at teams, you know, navigating their way. There was a moment, a stitch in time in which Browns fans like myself believed that, wow, we could have our cake and eat it too. We might be able to pass on the number 1 because there was a real chance that the people who were drafting below us, one of them would not go for a quarterback. So we'd end up getting our quarterback at 4. That opens us up for something else at the 1 pick. But now you got to grab your guy. I mean, it really looks like, I mean, it would be the greatest disaster for a new administration in the front office to have your eyes on a guy and then gamble it away and have, you know, that pick, you know, that number 3 pick steal the guy you wanted and you lose the gamble. There's no way the Browns can afford to gamble with the tenuous nature of the organization in the past. They're going to have to go 1 quarterback. And, you know, and I'm not even convinced at this point, but even though they say Barkley's going to go 2, I'm not convinced of it because as you get closer and closer to the draft, there's more people who are saying, you know, I know his explosiveness, but you look at him at Penn State and how many years did he gain 1,000 yards? What was he, you know, what was it about him that was consistent from year to year to year? And there are people who are starting to go more negative on him. So he might be there at 4. You know. I don't know. The Giants, to pick him at number 2, I don't know. I mean,
the Giants would take an offensive guard probably.
Well, I'll tell you something. No, they already got one. They got one from they got Nate Solder. But the problem for the Giants, how they can't just throw their. I understand that Eli Manning felt cheated. His brother, didn't sell him any of the Papa John's restaurants, and he felt swindled, cheated, shortchanged. The truth is that he's not the future of the Giants. Eli Manning is a guy who might well be washed up, predicated on what we saw last year. You can blame Bet McAdoo. You can do whatever you want to do and blame whoever you want. But the fact is, the Eli Manning we saw on the field was not good last year. And if you pass up a quarterback at number 2 to take a running back, and Eli Manning either gets hurt or he goes bust again under a new coaching system where you're starting a whole new scheme and he's not part of the future plans. It's a lot of pressure on the Giants to choose Saquon Barkley at 2. That's a lot of pressure. I'm not sure that I'd have the stones to do that.
I agree.
And I'm not even sure the Browns want him. That's the honest truth. I don't even, that name's not coming up at all. Mark Jones is saying USC quarterbacks scare me. Remember Matt Leinart? Yeah, in Arizona. Yeah. Matt Barkley. Oh yeah, there was another guy, underarmed. Mark Sanchez, underarmed. Yeah. And Ron Shane agrees with me. It's build a healthy team with depth. It's the foundation that matters. Brian Hallman in the chat room just went through Cody Kessler, who had similar numbers to the Cro-Magnon. And, Kessler, I say Kessler and Barkley might as well have been the same guy. They don't have enough arm strength. They were accurate in college, played in a pro set. That's not enough.
It's going to be a big decision for Cleveland come the day of the draft, because it's either you draft Darnold, so you're going to have Darnold, Stanton, Tyrod Taylor with the combination of Carlos Hyde and Duke Johnson, or you draft Saquon Barkley. You're going to have 3 running backs, but then you're going to be reduced to an all-in situation that you have to hope that Tyrod Taylor can be able to gel in this offense. If not, then you got to go right back to Drew Stanton, a.k.a. the next Josh McGowan, in my eyes,
So I mean, he's there as a steadying influence to be a bench jockey, because you don't want your first string guy to get hurt, and you're not going to play a rookie. So you got to have a veteran. What were you going to get? I mean, he's 33 years old. If you had Josh McCown and you want a guy to fill that kind of a role, then Drew Stanton can do it as well as anybody. But I mean, it's not. We're not looking forward to him actually playing. I have one of the greatest imbecilic quotes that I have ever seen. And this is what passes. And I really hate this about, ESPN and all of these talking, the dog and pony show, talking head sports talk programs, where you have a boxing guy, Max Kellerman, who replaced an obnoxious LeBron hater. And you've got Stephen A. Smith, who is the only black man who could scream fire in the Apollo Theater and not be believed. Stephen,
That's a good one.
That was a good one.
Well, and this is kind of how I see it. Here's the comment. Stephen A. Smith states, for the record, I don't want to see Loyola in the national championship game because I'm not interested in Cinderellas. What I want to see is the 2 best teams, and that does not include Loyola Chicago. Now, we have to comment on this only because it's totally imbecilic. But let's start. Stephen A. doesn't want Loyola Chicago in the final game. Is there anyone on this panel who would object to seeing Loyola Chicago in the title game? We'll start with Stephen.
I would like to see Loyola Chicago, just based on the fact that if you look at all the past years, you had the Novas, the Dukes, the North Carolinas, you had your typical big league universities win championships, and it's very rare that you see a Cinderella go as – I mean, I think the last Cinderella team that I was intrigued that got this far, other than VCU, was probably George Mason. And I would have to say that Loyola Chicago kind of gives you that hope that the underdog could win. I'm not a fan of them in particular, but Michigan did me a favor by knocking off U of H. I'm a Longhorns fan, so I hate anything that's not in Texas that's not Longhorns, so related. So I personally think Loyola Chicago kind of gives you that hope that maybe there is like an underdog school that you never even heard of before that could win the NCAA tournament. So I'm all for it. I like it.
Matt,
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, Matt, do you have a feeling about, I mean, would you rather see a favorite play or a team that is just an underdog team play in a finals of the NCAA?
Yeah, I would like to see something different, to be honest. Like, I would love to see Chicago go to the final.
Yeah, I mean, I was watching Kansas take out Duke, and the first thing that I noticed is that the older he gets, the more Mike Krzyzewski looks like Ernest Angley, the televangelist. I don't know why that is, but the guy, I don't like Mike Krzyzewski. I don't like the fact that he recruits guys in this big limousine. I think it's disgusting. I think that he keeps a low profile, but he is everything that's wrong with the whole NCAA basketball setup. I was thrilled to see his team lose, not for the kids, because those kids, Bagley and Carter and, those guys are going to move on and have a chance to play pro ball. But just to wound Krzyzewski, I was happy. But to sit there, and I'll let you talk, Crazy Dog. Loyola Chicago, you're all for it in the finals.
Yeah. I like seeing new teams make these kind of runs. It's intriguing, It's always easy to root for the underdog.
Team is 33-5. 5 teams beat them. It's not all about who's the best, period. It's about who's playing the best come dance time.
Yeah.
And up to this point, I mean, it was like we wanted to see Indiana State with Larry Bird and 4 other guys win the NCAA tournament because, the hick from French Lick, we wanted to see him, but we knew damn well that Michigan State, between, having Kelser and having Magic Johnson, was the better team. We knew that. But the fascination of a team from Terre Haute, Indiana, playing in a championship game, that's exciting stuff. It was like when UCLA, the big UCLA-Houston game when Elvin Hayes was playing for Houston. I mean, I'm bringing in Texas stories for my Texas friend here. But, that the big game that was at the Astrodome, I think these things are good. I remember when, who was the team? Paul Westhead's team, Bo Kimball, and come on, help me here. The team that scored 130 points a game. I just saw a documentary on them. Loyola Marymount.
Yeah.
I mean,
Loyola.
Another Loyola, yeah. I mean, that was fascinating. The notion of, I remember when, what was the kid's name? Drew, who was the coach's son. And I think that was in Evansville, a team from Indiana. And I think that he hit a huge shot at the buzzer, coach's son, to win the game. Homer Drew was the coach and his son hit the game winner. I mean, this is why I watch. It's why I used to watch the Olympics and I don't anymore. If I wanted to see favorites and professionals play all the time, I wouldn't be watching amateur events. The excitement is for these kids who are, kids at Loyola of Chicago. I don't know. There might be a guy out there who's playing for them who gets a sniff of the pros, but there ain't nobody who is going to be a lottery pick from Loyola Chicago. This may be the high water mark of all of these kids' lives. And Stephen A. Smith wants to dash their hopes and dreams by supplanting them with the Dukes of the world.
So I guess he wants to see a Michigan versus Villanova, Kansas winner. I still think Loyola could get to the championship game if they beat Michigan. I think they can. I just don't know if they could beat Villanova, Kansas, though. I still think
I don't see them beating either of the number ones.
Yeah, Nova is good. Is really
Villanova in the tournament right now.
Yeah, really, really good. And don't feel bad about my comments about Stephen A. Smith because they didn't even invite him to the Million Man March. So, well, what can I tell you? All right, 47 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock, and let's see what else we have. Anybody want to bring up anything?
Markelle Fultz is playing.
Yeah, yeah. I hope we don't have to watch him take free throws. That's the boy. 68 games missed with this. What some people are saying is a phantom shoulder issue that became a psychological issue, or a real shoulder problem that became a psychological problem. They released a video of him shooting free throws that was like, oh my God, how in the hell can that? I mean, the guy looked wrecked. We're going to reintroduce him into a 76ers team that is fighting for potentially still the 3rd seed in the East. Is that a good idea, Crazy Dog?
I mean, if you really think he can make plays, I mean, why not? It's another playmaker. Just make sure he doesn't shoot the ball.
Well, I mean, I don't know. He's athletic, but who knows where his head's at right now. But I know that if that's part of the process in Philadelphia, then we're going backwards.
I want to ask you a question in regards to the NBA, since we're on that topic. If you noticed lately, there's been a lot of injuries in the NBA.
Yes.
Now critics are starting to suggest that maybe an 82-game season doesn't work the way it did 20, 30, 40 years ago.
Right.
They're saying perhaps that maybe the season is too long, that it doesn't take 82 games to determine a top 8 seed. I think most people can agree with that. Do you think 82 is an adequate number? If not, what do you think would be an adequate number to lower the season games to prevent these type of injuries? Because the playoffs could be impacted when Kyrie Irving's not playing, Stephen Curry's not playing, the possibility of John Wall not being ready for playoffs. And you're talking about so many teams, and then, DeMarcus Cousins not playing. This is going to impact the playoffs and its true intensity in terms of having fully healthy teams playing at their fullest potential, because that's what people want to see.
But, the interesting way I look at this is, if you're watching an NFL football game and Peyton Manning's in his last year and he's throwing wet noodles out because his shoulder's been wrecked, his neck's been wrecked, his spine's been wrecked, you would expect that with a guy who's been in the league that long. The injuries that are striking the NBA are happening at younger and younger ages. Kyrie Irving is 25 years old. John Wall is no older. These injuries, and Steph Curry just turned 30. What it's starting to remind me of is the NFL, where, what is considered an old running back, if you put a 3 as the first number of the age of a running back, when he hits 30 years old, he's devalued because the beating that their legs take over the course of those seasons. The NBA, at the breakneck pace that the game's being played, the three-point mania, let's release 3 guys on a miss, get the rebound, kick it out, and go. The stop and go, think of Kyrie Irving. The reason he had the surgery released finally, that they needed to tighten a wire in his knee. That's the wire that holds the screws together, that holds his kneecap together, folks.
Wow.
They had to change the tension on that wire because they felt that was what was giving him discomfort. This is a 25-year-old person whose kneecap was shredded into 2 pieces. That's the scary part. And you look at the type of players that, guys like Rose, who were go to the basket, change direction guys, ending up at the age of 28, washed up, can't find work in the NBA because they've had so many leg injuries. And now Kyrie Irving, who's dependent upon breaking ankles, the stop and go, the instant speed and the change of pace. I remember in the old days of basketball, the guys like Gus Johnson, who had knee problems because he was an explosive player in his generation. Earl Monroe was another one who was a similar kind of guy who played that one-on-one herky-jerky kind of game. But the pace at which this game is being played now, guys aren't making it to 30. I mean, Durant has had a couple of bad leg injuries. We're talking about people who are not old. These are not old men. Go ahead.
My dad just brought up a good statistic just now on my phone. He said, he wanted to give a shout out, Mr. Moohead. He said that the average possession time for each team, because of how fast-paced the game, back in 1984, it was an average of 17 to 18 seconds. So you basically held the ball for an entire possession length, or almost that. Now the possessions are below 10 seconds. In fact, even between 6 to 8 seconds before a shot is released, that the game is speeding up. It's fast.
Well, all you have to do is take a look at how many shots each team is taking in the course of the 48-minute basketball game. And if you were to compare that with 1984, 3 decades ago, you would see a massive difference. The thing that I see is the biggest difference in the game, besides the tempo, is the percentage of plays that are made above the rim. The what we used to be called the alley-oop is now standard stuff. The pick and roll, which used to be pick, roll to Kevin McHale, who played below the hoop and laid it in, is now a pick, a hard roll, and a monster slam. Where do these players land when they're running down the court full speed? They go up in the air. I saw a video, and it was the Greek Freak when he, in his rookie or second year in the NBA, where he actually hurdled a 6'6" guy to get a slam dunk. And the guy fortunately crouched down, because if he had stayed up erect, he would have gone, he would have done somersault. He could have been severely injured. Real bad.
Is 82 games sufficient? Do we need to lower the number down? Because
economically, it's not going to happen. I mean, we can say yes from the player's perspective, but the only thing we might see is players opting not to play in the preseason, that kind of thing. But no, the NBA is not. It's just like the NFL. The NFL is protecting a 16-game schedule and talking about, hey, let's go to 18. If you want to take away 2 preseason games, fine. We'll add them onto the regular season. It's all about this, man. It's all about coin. It's not going to change. But I'll tell you something. You kill the goose that lays the golden egg when these types of things happen.
It's just with 82 games, like my dad just sent another text. He said 82 games, and you got about 25 that are watered down at the point. You got a 21-52 Atlanta that's basically playing 15 more games that are relevant,
Well, I mean, I would say that there are entire teams whose entire seasons are basically irrelevant, but the pace of the game, you look at the Nets, who the Cavaliers just beat, they just go up and down the floor shooting threes and running and gunning. I mean, it's like those guys could get injured just as easily as the name players in the league. It's happening all over the league. And I don't think that playing this many games at this pace, you're not going to change it now, but it's, the same kinds of things about, that we've seen like in MMA. I mean, you look at the performance enhancing drugs that are being used by people in MMA, and you look at Royce Gracie when he first started out as the first UFC MMA champion, and the technique and the strength and the training now compared to all those years ago. I mean, the athletes are bigger, stronger, faster. I mean, injuries are just waiting to happen. And we saw it happen with Paul George when he broke his leg running into the stanchion, and that happens. All it takes is one misstep when you're going in, man.
Do y'all remember the lockout year? They had 66 games. Did you guys like it then? Because it felt like all the games meant something more.
Yeah, I personally think I'm against 162 games in Major League Baseball. I think it's too long. It gets boring at the end. What do you think, Crazy Doug?
Yeah, I think it gets way too long, and with all these teams that are trash, I mean, all they're doing is just tanking. So it's like 82 games that mean absolutely nothing because you're trying to get the number 1 draft pick. It's like, that's a little too long.
And in the NBA, when you rebuild, it's not like football where you can rebuild faster. In the NBA, it takes you like 15 years to rebuild.
Yeah. Now, Matt, you're a baseball fan. Do you savor 162 games, or do you find that you don't want to go to the ballpark in the end of March and face the cold weather and the winds coming off of the lake to watch baseball? And you don't want the fall classic to be like the winter classic. How do you feel? Do you like 162 games?
I think it should be trimmed down, to be honest, because 162 games is too much.
Yeah.
I mean, it goes on forever. I mean, and I understand that baseball's all about trying to get as many teams into the playoffs, and this is the way, and I understand that it's the best way to make sure that the best teams do get in. But again, you have pitchers who are throwing split finger pitches that torque the arm, that put more pressure on parts on their elbows. Tommy John surgery has become a staple, not for major league pitchers, but for guys in college and in the minor leagues. For 17 and 18-year-olds who are finding their way through the low minor leagues, getting Tommy John surgery. And again, 162 games to have to rely on starters throwing these, and guys are throwing 98, 99, 100 miles an hour. We end up with Danny Salazar. That's what we end up with. A guy who's got a career train wreck for an arm. So, I think it's way too long. But, the basketball season to me feels like, I want it to go into the playoffs because for the Cavaliers, it's like I'm afraid what might happen next because of what's already happened. Larry Nance looked terrible in his last game. He didn't look like himself at all. And I'm saying, is that a hamstring or is that a knee he's got? There's something wrong with Larry Nance Jr. They did not put him back in the game against the Nets. He did not have explosiveness. He missed an alley-oop because he didn't get up high enough. He wasn't getting up off the ground like he normally does. He was trying to throw up little baby hooks instead of jamming the ball. I mean, I see injuries coming from every angle. And if the Celtics get rocked in the first round of the playoffs because Kyrie Irving can't make the dance, there are going to be a lot of freaking pissed off people in Boston because Boston was the best team in the East. And if they lose a 25-year-old guard, anyone could go down next. And LeBron can go down tomorrow. As much as you want to say he's an Iron Man, when are these 82 games that he's playing all of this year, when is it going to come back to haunt him? Just to be a matter of time.
He has a lot of miles on that odometer of his. But you know what? One thing I will give the Cavs props is they're playing a lot better since Love came back. That's one positive to take from it.
Yeah. I mean, they couldn't be playing really worse. Sister Jean. I did want to mention that too. Loyola Chicago. Just when you're really in love with them, they got the permission from Sister Jean, the old lady, to exclusively market her name. And when she gave her consent, 35 different Sister Jean t-shirts were put together and marketed by the university. Is there anything that these prostitutes won't do to make money out of their programs?
Wow.
I mean, she's an old lady who happens to be a Loyola Chicago person, and it's like she's 98 years old.
A 98-year-old nun.
Yep.
Wasn't that like the 100-year-old Vikings fan? Same thing, kind of.
Yeah. Well, no. The difference is they asked her, what kind of money she was. Well, I think the reason they chose her, first of all, is she's recognizable to the fan base, but being a nun, she's not used to getting any. Okay? She's not getting any. She's not getting any money either. She gave her name for marketing purposes and licensing purposes, and the poor woman Yep.
But Mr. Moohead, back to the Cavs. I wanted to ask you a question. Wouldn't you guys? We all are both Cavs fan, obviously. Wouldn't you want Kyrie Irving and John Wall to play in the playoffs? Because then, if the Cavs win, they're going to say, "Well, the reason why you won asterisk is because these guys didn't play." You know.
Look, the Kyrie Irving thing is over. I don't agree with the way the Cavaliers dished him off and traded him as quickly as they did, but it's done. If Kyrie Irving has a great career and wins championships, good for him. But yes, I would rather beat him than to have him go down. And I felt the same way when we lost to the Warriors because he had that knee problem. And the same thing with Kevin Love when Kelly Olynyk ripped his shoulder joint out. The same thing. You know, you want your best team on the floor at full strength, and you want to give these people an opportunity to win. And if the Celtics are good enough to beat the Cavaliers or the Raptors and get into the finals, God bless them. You know, then they got to play a beast from the West. And but that's the way you want it. I don't want to see Kyrie Irving injured. I don't want to see a promising career derailed because of knee injuries. That's not being a fan of the game.
What do you guys think about Stephen Curry being out of the first round of the playoffs in the West? That means whoever comes in at 7 in the West has a chance to upset the second seed Warriors. I know I don't want to see it happen because I want the Warriors at full strength when being beaten. But if you're in the West and you're sitting 3-9 right now, you got to be asking yourselves, should I tank just enough to keep the 7th seed? I mean, if you think about it.
Yeah, well, Stephen Curry to me is the most overrated guy, face of the NBA. Please.
Think so?
Yes, I do.
I'm looking at the standings right now, and it would be Minnesota.
Minnesota ain't going to beat Golden State even without Steph Curry. Yeah, because they don't got Jimmy Butler. So, I mean,
True.
Yeah, so I mean they're shorthanded, but Steph Curry to me, the Warriors became the unbeatable Warriors when Kevin Durant came in. Kevin Durant is the face there. Steph Curry is a little guy who's a great shooter who really can pop the three with quick release. But the truth is, they beat the Cavaliers one year when the Cavaliers were injured and had nobody, and he still had a shitty finals. The Cavaliers beat them. And if you, lest you forget, when we didn't have Kyrie Irving, Matthew Dellavedova gave him grief. All right. So I'm not that high on Steph Curry. And then they blew a 3-1 lead and we beat them, and Steph Curry didn't show up in the final game.
If you eliminate his 3-point shot, he's basically nothing, to be honest.
But that's it. I mean, it isn't. I mean, he's a good finisher, but he's not a good defensive player. You got to kind of hide him defensively. Durant at 6'11", shooting balls from 28 feet. That's a different thing, man. That's a different thing.
So, Mr. Durant, when you faced the Warriors in the finals when Durant was there, did you already knew the series was over? Or did you figure, we can still beat this team?
I didn't think that we were going to beat them, and I think that it's really hard to overcome that troika because, Durant gets it going. And the only hope for Cleveland fans was that Durant, when he was with OKC, had trouble with LeBron. I mean, they did not beat LeBron teams. OKC did not beat LeBron when he was with Cleveland or Miami. So that was the hope. But he grew up in a big hurry, and he had a really big series, and he was unstoppable. You have to double somebody. You tell me. You're going to leave Klay Thompson open from three. You're going to leave Steph Curry open from three. You got to double Durant because he's just so long. He can beat you from anywhere on the court. And then on top of that, you got other guys who can actually do damage too. So
I think the Warriors kind of cheated though, because if you think about it, it's kind of like, well, he's an insurance policy because we're never going to face the Cavs again. So now we know LeBron can't do it on his own. And then not only that, but it's kind of like a cop out because it's like you're taking a top 5 player and adding it to a team with probably 4 guys that are top 20 players. And it's just like you're just adding another guy, and then the other 28 teams really don't have a leg to stand on. So it's like, okay, well, we already know we're going to make the finals. It's just beating the Cavs at this point, and LeBron just doesn't have the weapons to beat us. And it's kind of like Durant's always going to have that that stigma behind him. He's always going to have that asterisk is he was living in the shadow of other guys that he could not do it on his own, or he could not do it with Westbrook.
Well, yeah, I mean, the whole thing was, LeBron can't do it by himself. Nobody now in the league can do it by themselves. I got to get going at 6 minutes after 7. I wanted to point out to each of you, this is the last show until Friday, but I'm heading up to South Carolina. I have a second home up there for the summer. So you'll see different backdrop. The connection is not quite as good up there, but we're still getting 60 download. We get 100 here. So it shouldn't interfere with our ability to do our panel shows. And keep your eyes open. I'll be posting, the links and all that. And feel free to jump in if you're around. And thank you, all of you, for showing up. I appreciate it.
No problem.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot. All right, that's it for this edition of Moohead Radio. Thanks a lot for tuning in. Next time I see you, I'll be in Carolina because I'm just that kind of cow. Until then, hasta la vista, Pasture Heads. Take care. Bye-bye.